All right, Frigid's got his opening hand here.
Another heavy shard opener here. He's gonna keep it because he's got two cards that potentially draw him into more. He's playing against this Mono Sapphire. Now in the Mono Sapphire mirror, counter magic is your biggest threat. The Buccaneers are annoying, but the counter magics are your biggest threat. First person to get something that sticks on the board, I feel like, is gonna have the best time here. At least in the first match.
Yeah, also okay to keep a hand that's heavy on shards when you're playing the Mono Sapphire Mirror. Being able to protect your threat, like let's say you could just play draw go and threaten that you got the counter magic the whole time and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to wait until I have enough resources to play Dreamer and protect it with either verdict or counter magic there.
So here we see that shard coming out. It's obviously the best play that's available for Mono Sapphire on turn one because they don't have any dual shards at all to worry about.
That's true. Definitely want to get the Sapphire going.
Chattadog is saying whoever drops a Reese on turn two with counter to back it up wins. Perhaps. There are reasons that I can think of where a Reese on turn two wouldn't exactly be the game winner here.
Yeah, Reese takes long enough that you could potentially have counter plus verdict, but I mean, if both of you are playing those cards,
also
then yeah,
Grolk,
being able to
Grolk Mastery would eventually get around it. Frigid looking very happy that he resolved that Mirror Knight, despite the fact that there was nothing that could have stopped. Well, that's not true. There's not nothing that could have stopped him, but there's nothing his opponent's running that could have stopped him. There is that Chaos Touch discard with from your hand and two cards, the Shoggoth.
Yeah, that one takes triple Sapphire though.
Do you need triple Sapphire Threshold to activate its ability? Shame.
Yeah. Yeah. Not something you can do on turn one. Or at least not something you can currently do. Who knows? Maybe something will happen someday that will let us do that. So Frigid playing a Sapphire here, attacking with the Mirror Knight. Koma on 2 resources, so you know that the only potential counter might be Verdict.
Agreed. It's a good time for that Mirror Knight to get in there.
Yep, Mirror Knight number 2 comes down. Now Frigid just needs to top deck either the Reese or the Cloud there, and you'd be all set. Probably Cloud into Reese would be.
Yeah, he's probably not even going to be too sad if he just plays the Dreamer here. There's a Mirror Knight. That Mirror Knight's interesting because it means that Koma's choosing not to hold any sort of counter up here, which further means that that Dreamer is going to hit the board, going to get the double Inspire, and if Koma wants to make the best use of that Mirror Knight, probably going to end up in a situation where this is over in a turn or two.
Yeah, definitely the right time to go for the Dreamer here. No chance it's getting stopped. Maybe Koma doesn't even have counter magic and isn't going to pretend it.
Yeah. You obviously swing here. You're only going to get through for 1 point of damage, but that's fine. Every point of damage is going to matter here. Now, next turn it's going to be, I think, a hand refilling turn for Frigid, assuming Koma doesn't hold up resources, because that Dreamer is going to get some work in.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, Koma's got to answer Dreamer. I mean, unfortunately, not holding up
Could be a Buccaneer. Could be a Buccaneer.
Yeah. Yeah, he's forced to, because if he doesn't, then Frigid's just going to say, okay, all I have to do is keep attacking with Dreamer, and I'm going to win the game. Yeah, so we do see the Buccaneer here. Koma will put the Dreamer back in hand. Yeah, Koma's still on the back foot here. Did he miss a shard drop, I think? Just on 3. Yeah, looks like he's stuck on 3 there as well too. Mirror Knight attacks in for 1. No big deal.
And
Right.
it's still just like that weird race that Mono Sapphire has to play against each other.
Yeah, and it's still without being able to counter magic again on the Dreamer. Still pretty similar board position for Koma. Koma might possibly have another Buccaneer here. With only having 3 shards and keeping the hand, probably has lots of cheap action.
Could have a lot of Grolks. Grolks could still turn this around.
All right, we see Happy Cloud here.
With the Crackling Vortex follow-up.
Yeah, the immediate sacrifice for 2 Stormling seems like the right way to go. Gets 2 Thunder Puffs, which is pretty useful in this board state here. Gives a couple of turns where you don't necessarily have to take the hit from the Dreamer. And you get to draw a card as well. Yeah, probably 2 Thunder Puffs was the best draw, actually. Or maybe Thunder Puff plus Biddy Bolt would be okay, but... Or double Biddy Bolt. Actually, I guess there were a lot of good ones in that spot. But
there really was. Man. You gotta be happy with that, right? Like you gotta be happy with being able to slow down your opponent even a little bit in this situation. Frigid probably a little frustrated about it, to be honest.
Pass it back with open himself. Were you saying something, Tech?
Yeah, so I think we just had a hiccup on Skype again. You're back. Okay.
Did you lose me for a second there or something?
It's possible. There's a little bit of weird Skype non-foolery today, but we'll see if we can work through that. So at this point, now Frigid has the superior board state. And Frigid has the Mirror Knights. Now, the thing is that the Mirror Knights don't actually do a whole ton here. Just on the basis that they have a very rough time dying. Like, things don't really get destroyed a lot in a Mono Sapphire Mirror. So all these Mirror Knights are 1/2 bodies that are like, oh, look, my Eldritch Dreamer draws me 70 cards if it dies. And the other Mono Sapphire player is like, that's great, I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to bounce it back to your hand. I'm going to exhaust it. I'm going to look at it dirty, but it's not exactly going to be a huge issue here.
But in a Mono Sapphire, what are the options to actually kill it, send it to graveyard?
There's not much.
Zapper's Charge.
Zapper's Charge, not main.
Yeah, that's not usually main. Yeah.
You could conditionally mesmerize things. That obviously doesn't send them to the grave, but is an issue. Murmurs.
Yeah, that doesn't actually trigger the Mirror Knight either, though. So, yeah, there's not a lot of ways it'll get triggered.
Yeah, the only thing I believe is available as an option is 2 Biddy Bolts.
Yeah, the Biddy Bolts are the way to go. Chaos Key still doesn't trigger Mirror Knights. Yeah, there's not a whole lot. So anyway, Koma's still holding a ton of cards, which is reasonable, really, when you look at it, because you've got what Frigid has in hand. You see Frigid has like the more impressive board state, or he did until just recently. Now he's exactly 1 power behind on the board. But if this turn goes off, he is going to refill his own hand. That is if
The
he
one thing-
chooses. I can't actually see how many resources. Koma has two. Sorry, has two
Koma's got two.
resources, and so that's possibly Verdict. You don't really want to be throwing Mastery down onto the board here.
Right. Interesting to point out, Frigid decided to hold back a few turns there from playing that shard. It's possible,
and now it's actually hurting him. Yeah,
and now it's actually hurting him.
Because if he could play Mastery with counter backup, he could get...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, at this point, he also got a little bit rewarded because his Eldritch Dreamer with its Prime Sapphire of the Mind managed to draw another Eldritch Dreamer, which Verdict of the Ancient Kings can't stop, so it's going to hit the board. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see how many total resources Koma's at, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. So we can see Grolks nail the board here. And at this point, actually, a Grolk would be a pretty big deal against Frigid because it kind of neutralizes the Mastery of Time play altogether.
Yeah, Mastery's okay in that spot, but it's still... I mean, Koma...
Yeah, no, I mean, it lets you ready. It lets you ready, and it lets you have one turn. Ideally, you draw 2 cards off your Eldritch Dreamer, but it's not the same as swinging for 12. And there's the first Grolk. Grolk hits the board, exhausts the entire board of Frigid. Now, when Frigid's board is exhausted like this, it won't ready during his next ready step. That's the power of the Grolk, the Thundering Grolk just, like, staring them down. And
the menacing Grolk, even?
Yeah, the menacing Grolk. Now, as a follow-up, honestly, that's a pretty good draw. Once again, we see a situation where had Frigid been playing out his resources, he would have represented less in his hand for quite some turns, and that would have been bad, as it opens up options for Koma. But he also would be able to play Mastery now and use Counter Magic, and then he would ready next turn, get 2 cards, and then Mastery again, and get 2 cards unanswered, and that would be a huge deal for him here. So maybe not a misplay, so to speak, because like I feel like holding back your resources is always an option. But you can see Frigid was like hovering over his vortex right there, like, man, we should play this before.
Yeah, he knows. It's not a misplay. It's just going for a different kind of line of play, which unfortunately isn't what he drew into here. We see Koma here getting all of his resources back. I think he's at 7 now. So it is possible that we could start seeing Mastery as well from Koma here with Verdict back up. I do like the fact that Frigid did go ahead and hold back with only 7 resources, though. If you play Mastery, that's one that's definitely going to get called by the opponent. So at that point, you got to show the Verdict. He obviously didn't have it in that spot.
Yeah.
And then he's open to getting infinite Masteried out.
Now, this is crazy to see Koma reach 8 resources before Frigid. And with so many cards still in hand.
Yeah, that is surprising. It was the what's his name? Happy Cloud, Storm Cloud.
Yep, the Storm Cloud did basically what it needed to. It's the only thing that enables Mirror Knights here in this matchup, really. And here comes that Buccaneer, which is going to knock back an Eldritch Dreamer. Probably not Frigid's favorite thing to see here. But no Mastery plus Verdict, no Mastery plus Counter Magic. Maybe Koma isn't holding a Mastery here. Which is scary, for him. Because now we have the possibility of seeing the explosion of Frigid here when he Masteries into Counter Magic. Although there is, again, a little bit less board pressure now with that one Eldritch Dreamer being bounced. And it's hard to say, really, because...
Yeah. On this one, I think the play is definitely you attack with the Dreamer, you play the shard, you mastery with counter backup, and then you hope to draw another shard so that you can just get another mastery going and continue attacking in here.
And you hope you don't get counter magic plus verdicted, which is entirely possible. Now he's got the mastery counter verdict. You know, his hand is getting a little more elegant here. Looks like he's gonna play the worker bot and the shard. Does he pull the mastery trigger here? Or is it still time to hold on and wait?
Say with the peak, Frigid does have the option if he wants to just sit back.
Somebody was saying that he should swing with the Mirror Knight as well. It's an interesting thought there because he could swing with all of his Mirror Knights, and that opens up a lot of potentially different lines of play. Like at that point, he has to mastery because he can't afford to just let the entire opponent board swing. He has to do this. He has to do that. So the big thing here is if Frigid masteries and holds up counter and has to use that counter to protect his mastery and then loses it, then he can't answer the opponent Grolk board state. Like,
that's true.
Looks like he just passed priority. The opponent has V out of S shards. Koma. He had 5 open. He had 5 out of 8, I believe. It's very difficult to see. I wish I
correct. 5 out of 8.
To ask Frigid to move that text or make it smaller or something. It's not a huge deal, but it was happening yesterday, so I was thinking about it. At this point, if we say something in his stream chat, it is, of course, on a 10 or 12-minute delay, so that's not going to do anybody any good. Koma merely swinging in with the Dreamer and the Grolk here. That'll deal 5 damage, put Frigid back to 3 health, and draw another card for Koma. I cannot imagine a situation where he doesn't have the answers necessary to make this board his. This has to be the win. It is also worth noting, I believe Frigid has 2 worker bots there, which is kind of difficult to see because Frigid has his camera there in the screen. Here comes the Stormcloud. Now, is that counter magical? Hard to say because it's 2 cards at least for 2 resources there if it doesn't get countered. But if you use your counter here, you lose your counter. That's a huge deal. If the Stormcloud pops and draws 2 cards all on its own, that's a big deal. I don't think you can. I don't think you can counter it here.
I don't think you can afford to counter this. Yeah,
but you open up a bare minimum 2 cards for your opponent for free. And at the worst case here, if there's a Crackling Vortex follow-up play, which there is, now you pop that, you double inspire both of the Stormcloudlings, and depending on what Stormcloudlings you get, a Bitty Bolt and a Thunderpuff. Okay, Thunderpuff stops Eldritch Dreamer for a turn. Bitty Bolt can kill nothing here, but that's another set of double cards.
Yeah, I understand what Frigid was thinking when he just decided to go ahead and pass the turn there, but I think you have to go for the counter magic on that last turn. Yeah, he might have multiple answers and you might end up losing that battle, but if you wait, you're just playing into the opponent's hand because he's ahead already on life total, and he's got the Dreamer that already can win, and he's got the Grolk as well that can get through. I think you had to go for it on that last turn.
Yeah, although Frigid does get to peek here and find a verdict. Now, at this point, I think he has to go all in on what he's got in hand. Like, you have to just hope you draw something extra. He can protect the mastery. That's the important part here. He's got counter magic and 2 verdicts, and with Koma only having 7 resources open, that does mean there's at least a chance here that Frigid can pull this game back. Uh, he can swing with the Dreamer here if the Thunder Puff doesn't explode itself. And if the Thunder Puff explodes itself, I think you still half, have to use the Mastery. You can't. I don't think you can pass the turn here. You're dead to. You're dead to Dreamer, so you would have to put down Grolk, for example. Oh, this is a good play here. Swinging with the Mirror Knights, trying to force blocks and trades. Like two of the Mirror Knights can. I think Koma, best scenario here. 2 Mirror Knights blocking 2 Mirror Knights and a worker bot in front of one of the other ones. You lose one of your worker bots, and
or just take the one. I mean, it's not.
Or you take the one. Yeah. Like you do not make the Buccaneer Mirror Knight trade here. Like that's the absolute worst thing you can do, because this is a play that you make when you need cards, and it looks like perhaps fishing just for a resource. Although, okay, the Buccaneer trade on the original Cerulean Mirror Knight is also acceptable. I didn't really think about that. That hasn't been inspired at all. So that's actually exactly the way you should play that.
Yeah, we missed that one, but yeah, that is.
Yeah,
better.
it was just easy to forget that hadn't been touched. I think it's without that shard, he can only stop one. He's got to try to pull the mastery trigger. There's the first verdict. He's gonna counter the verdict, and does it resolve? No, there's a verdict. So there's a downvote on the counter magic to try to stop the downvote. Had there been another shard, Frigid could have verdicted the verdict, but that's also potentially not enough, because even at the end of this chain, you can see that Koma has 3 resources open, meaning he either has another counter magic or verdict up. Well, Havoc, I mean, that's absolutely true, but variance does happen, so we had to discuss it in that way. Yeah, it did look like the game was decided several turns ago, but I mean, a couple of resources might have changed things around. You never know, just like how things twist and turn in your opponent's favor, or in your favor.
Yeah, the other thing is the way that the opponent played it. It didn't appear that he had counter magic early.
Yeah,
not positive on that, but
you know, and even if he didn't, though, he still had a Biddy Bolt to pop to try to find some more. You know, like could have fished for those resources, like maybe found a peak, and well, I guess a peak wouldn't have left him with enough resources. But so he's down 1 game. Frigid going into game 2 of this semifinals match. These competitors already having won $50 each by making it to this point, in addition to the in-game prizes that are available, have to understand that the first and second place prizes are $250 and $150 each, respectively. So this match is at the worst for $100 and in-game prizes.
No pressure.
No also, big deal, right? No pressure, no big deal. Also for the prestige, also for the points, also for the chance of, you know, maybe just locking in a slot to go to the Shard of Fate series. And bearing in mind that Colin is sponsoring the Shard of Fate series, I'm pretty sure everyone is going to want a chance at those prizes. I know I'm sad I won't get a chance to play.
Yeah, I'm sad I'm not able to play that either, but that's okay. I like watching the games here.
You can still enter the Wild Cup and do well.
Spike the Wild Cup, the one tournament I play. No, that's I'm good. I like watching the games here.
So I should resign from doing this, huh?
I mean, you could if you really wanted to.
Yeah. You think you can spike the next tournament there, Tech? Who would?
No, I don't have friends.
I was just gonna say, who would be on your team that would carry you along to victory? Because it can't just be all you, right?
I would carry my team.
You would carry your team?
If I had a team. If I had friends.
Who would you carry? Oh, you don't have friends. Okay. Wild Cup, for the people asking one more time, it is the second weekend of next month, which is April. So April 11th will be the date. We always do these on the second weekend of the month. And it is teams of 3 for the Wild Cup. So looks like Evil Dan's looking for a team to play on. All right. Looks like Frigid is ready to go. And we are getting ready to start game number 2 now.
Oh, no, that's brutal. 1 shard hand with the Reese, a 2 shard hand would have been keepable there, maybe.
Yeah. I would keep that if it was 2 shards.
Well, it depends on what the 1 card missing to make the shard was, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
because if the Reese was missing and it was 2 shards, that
yeah,
would have been
if
like,
the Reese was missing, I would. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
All right, so we got Shards Sapphire, Peak, Menacing Grolk, double Splinter of Azathoth. Of course, Splinter of Azathoth and Menacing Grolk are interesting cards here, and interesting for various reasons. First of all, they are 4 drops and 5 drops, and it's going to be very difficult for Frigid to try to land them. But also, they do have triple Sapphire threshold each, so 2 Crackling Vortex, not enough actually, even though you get to 4 resources. Very unlikely that that'll happen, but it is worth mentioning. Koma kept his full hand. Turn 1, the strongest turn 1 play in the game, in my opinion. Ancestors Chosen. A 1/1 for 1 single Sapphire threshold at the beginning of its controller's turn. It will create 2 Ancestral Specters and put them into the deck. Ancestral Specters are 2/2 flight troops, cost 1, and draw you a card when they enter play. The most powerful 1-drop in the game, in my opinion.
Gotta say, I really love that play and that change. Having Ancestors Chosen, going underneath the counters from the mirror match, great way to go about it. Love that play.
Yeah, very difficult for Sapphire to deal with it outside of Grolk. And, just keeping the cards and troop advantage on the board, a huge deal. You just don't want to put too many resources in there. What about a turn 1 Diamond Shard for your turn 2 Angel? That's not a play. That's you put a diamond down. That is probably the strongest thing that can happen to you. I agree, but you know what I mean when I say a turn 1 play. You're just being pentadantic.
Well, it's still turn 2. Yeah, it's still turn 2 on the Angel.
It is still turn 2 on the Angel. Maybe Angel is the strongest turn 2 play in the game. So swings in with that Ancestors Chosen, a thing that you wouldn't do against a Diamond player, but you get to do here. Maybe even against a Ruby Tunnel Troop. So, kind of awkwardly, that's definitely a Crackling Vortex that the first Peak found, and not a shard that's being found here. So there is a 3 in 18 chance that the next shard is going to be a Crackling Vortex and will leave Frigid without a play again. He peeks, finds a Buccaneer, puts it on the board. Now, Buccaneer is at the very least going to be able to slow down the Ancestors Chosen. The Ancestors Chosen has put 2 Ancestral Specters into Koma's deck so far, now 4.
Yeah, the advantage you get from being able to keep Ancestors Chosen out there is great, and especially in the Mono Sapphire matchup. Not a lot of good ways unless they're bringing in something like Sapper's Charge.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's the one thing about them that's incredibly powerful just on the norm, is that if your 1-drop absorbs removal of any type, you've done well.
That's exactly true. Yep.
Now, Koma did not play his second shard, had to discard a card from his hand, and discards Reese. Now, hasn't played a shard and is about to get buccaneered by Frigid's play. So, after seeing his opponent mulligan, he chose to keep a 1-shard hand, and it looks like there's a very small chance that he's about to get punished for it, because we see Frigid moving up the way, and all of this time, Koma has not found a shard, but he finds one off the top, which will allow him to replay his Ancestors Chosen or something else. Looks like he's going to tunnel a card. I wonder what that'll be, especially with that 1 Reese in the graveyard. It couldn't possibly be a second Reese.
It could even be a boat.
It could be a boat. It's probably Monsoon. I've been told that it is, in fact, always Monsoon. Frigid does find a resource, does not hit the super unlucky nonsense of a Crackling Vortex, and is able to play Splinter of Azathoth onto the board. Splinter of Azathoth often ignored in certain decks just because of the triple threshold, making it very difficult to play, but in Mono Sapphire, not only is it powerful for its effect, But you have to bear in mind that is a 3/4 flyer, and it goes back to what I was saying about Terrabot a little bit earlier on in the day. Flyers are already very good in Hex. Now you've got a 3/4 flyer, which only like 2 or 3 troops in the game can actually kill in combat in the flight. So that's interesting. Ancestors Chosen replayed onto the board. Koma still not finding a second or third shard. You have to imagine that this is a stacked hand that he's just waiting for those shards for. And now Frigid's got the interesting choice of leaving open his Splinter ability or playing a second Splinter. He doesn't have the resources necessary to play anything else in his hand. And had he found a resource, I think he could try the Mastery Chain for the win, to be honest. That would be 5, 10, 15 damage right there, leaving his opponent on 3. Yeah, I think I would pull the Mastery trigger there. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, I actually was just thinking about something, and it may not even come up in this game, but I've never done this before. If you splinter a tunneled Reese, does it go back to the hand as well, or does it go back to tunneling, or what happens there? I assume it goes back to the hand.
Now, the way that tunneling is working right now, and this is just my interpretation, I believe it will get the ability for surfacing, but it will go back to hand when
so he'll have to replay it, but it will
He'll have to
ability.
replay it, but it'll have the tunneling ability. Now, it's just a matter of whether or not Koma realizes that, because he might just assume that it didn't play. But now, with the way they fixed tunneling in the last patch, when tunneling troops come up, they have a trigger for their surface ability, and they have a trigger for themselves entering the board, as opposed to those things being unique in themselves, which fixed in a roundabout way the huge Fishersmith bug that was stopping Fishersmith from being part of the competitive scene lately. And that's why I believe it'll work that way. I actually don't have any confirmation on that. Doesn't matter, because we see Frigid throwing everything that is not the kitchen sink here at Koma, to the point where Koma is actively going to double block, even with his Ancestors Chosen there, the Buccaneer, just to buy himself that one potential turn. Although, well, Frigid does tunnel his Reese here, and again, I think it's, yeah, I guess it's his only play here. Reese costs 5 normally.
It's
yeah, no, it's what you would do for a reason. For some reason, I thought he could play it, and I was just like, why would you do that?
It does change the clock to go ahead and block there that way with Koma, and it also is good for Frigid here, because I mean, what are the chances that Koma's going to play 2 things that you care about on this next turn with?
Yeah, there's the conceit. So a little bit less epic of a match than our first one, but right. Absolutely a good match altogether. Must have been a strong keep there to have ended up the way it was.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's one of these where it would, hey, my opponent mulligan, so, and if I got this awesome one,
I've got a turn 1. I've got the strongest turn 1 game play in the game.
And we saw the multiple Reeses, or at least the one Reese. I maybe didn't have multiple in the opener there. So I mean, I could see myself possibly keeping it, but yeah, definitely did not end up working out there.
Yeah, like if your hand was like counter, Reese, Ancestor, right. Shard, and one other card, you'd probably look at that and go, well, if I draw any shard, I'm good.
Right. That's right. But definitely not the way that it worked out there. Looks like we're moving into game 3 here. Seems like players having a bit of a problem connecting up here. All right. Here for the third game, Frigid on the draw because he did end up winning game number 2. We see his opening hand. Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, but it's fine. I would keep this.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly better than mulliganing. Now, this doesn't have any of the power cards in this matchup, though. Like, there is nothing here to put pressure on his opponent.
No pressure in
It's
this
the
hand at all.
building blocks. No turn 1 Ancestors Chosen. I think a turn 1 Ancestors Chosen here would have been very decisive against this hand. So it's lucky for Frigid that we didn't see that, and it's unfortunate for Koma that he didn't. Frigid's in Canada. Go Frigid. No. We see the shard. The draw was another answer upon answer upon answer. Like, he's got answers, I suppose. The verdict's not as powerful here because, like, I feel like this match is really defined by the stickiest threat. And really, are you going to be able to apply a sticky threat, like, when all you have is answers?
The good thing about Verdict is that it allows you to. It's the cheaper cost to be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to play, Dreamer plus Verdict protection to make sure that it happens, or try to make sure that it happens at least." So being one cost cheaper to be able to answer their best removal or answer, whatever you want to call it, against your threats is kind of nice.
Yeah. So we see a peak here for 2. We see Frigid sitting on. He found a sticky threat. He found the Elder Streamer. Koma is now tunneling a troop. I wonder who it's gonna be, and plays a 3rd shard. Now this is a concern for both players. Elder Streamer is, with those masteries, probably faster than Reese is. But that Reese is underground right now, and Frigid didn't have all the resources to play the Dreamer or the resources to play Mastery yet. So at this point, that Dreamer is still in hand. That Reese is underground. Koma has 6 cards and 3 resources, at least 4 now. Is Koma going to be able to just sit on a counter and say, all right, come at me, bro. I've got a Reese underground. I'll wait until you say what we're going to do, and then I'll counter whatever you say. Because even with 2 counter magics, 2 verdicts, and 2 masteries in hand, that Dreamer cannot hit the board if it's countered because Frigid just doesn't have the resources to deal with it. He attempts to put it on the board. He safely gets to put it on the board. And now, without resources open, just because it's on the board doesn't mean it's stuck. Not quite yet. He has to hope Koma can't Buccaneer or Time Ripple it. Both are options, I believe. I'm not sure Time Ripple is actually anywhere in the deck list.
Yeah. Koma is playing some Time Ripples. Not sure
not sure if they're still in there, but I didn't know if he was playing them at all. Here's the Buccaneer, though. Probably the reason that the Dreamer even was allowed to hit the board. Awkwardly, the top deck Ancestors Chosen there, the Ancestors Chosen of Shame. You put that down on the board. Now it's time to start creating Ancestral Specters. You're almost guaranteed at this point to know that had Koma had the resources, he would have played that, or had he had the Chosen, he'd have played that earlier. Frigid has to put down the Worker Bot to slow down the Ancestors Chosen. It didn't play out his Stormcloud, which I don't believe is the incorrect play, but it does mean that he's going to have to discard a card now. It's such a weird situation we're in here. He's going to throw out that Stormcloud. I think this might have already been decided here. Like, granted, Koma only has 3 cards in hand. He has just created 2 Ancestral Specters and put them into his deck, meaning a small percentage of his deck is now basically powerful cantrip draws. He gets to swing with the Buccaneer here, 1 turn away from Reese resolving, and at this point, I think Frigid has to just hang the board for a counter magic, and he needs to hope that he draws a shard so that he can counter Verdict. If he can counter Verdict Reese here, even if Koma uses 2 cards to answer that, if he counter verdicts himself, double counters, what have you, that does mean that he's down to 1 card in hand. Koma's down to, well, 2 cards in hand at that point. And you can almost see Frigid being able to work with that board state, like being able to get out of that.
Yeah, with this hand, it's
See, now
possible that he could recover.
real quick, you do see 2 triggers of Reese on the board. It's not Reese entering play twice. The trigger on the chain there at the far left was Reese gaining his ability. The other trigger was Reese hitting the board. Now, no, I cut you off and I totally stole your point, but also that counter was unanswered. So
yep. The Reese ends up getting through here regardless, not being able to go through here regardless. So it's not going to end up mattering. What I was going to say was, if there had been a counter war there, it's still possible that Dreamer with multiple masteries would be able to beat that draw. But it apparently doesn't even matter because Koma doesn't even have the answer. I feel like you 100% protect your Reese there if you had the counter. So we know pretty safely that Koma just has no counters at all at this point.
I mean, it's that, or he wanted to hold on to it. I mean, there's a very small and light chance that maybe he just was, oh, okay, my Reese isn't going to hit the board, that's fine. Maybe I need to, like, Frigid does have a ton of cards in hand, does have Dreamer. Maybe he thinks the Dreamer is more important than his Reese, but I don't think that could be.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're not protecting Reese, what threat are you riding to victory? Because obviously Buccaneer's not going to get it. Are you just hoping that you'll get lucky with lots of Ancestral Specters? I mean, that's a plan, I suppose, but not. I would think that being able to get the 2 troops that very turn from Reese is going to be better than waiting future turns to potentially get extra Specters. I think you pretty much have to protect Reese if that's the case.
Looks like they might have a little bit of a hang-up here because of the Crackling Vortex. Crackling Vortex and Shards of Fate both currently have some nasty little floaty... They actually... It's kind of better than it used to be. They end up on the screen and they go away at the end of turn. I don't know if this happened to you often, JJ, but like used to be if you like inspected a dual shard as it hit the board, it was like, well, time to lock up the game entirely.
I've had problems with it showing on Arena. I've not actually had any problems with it locking up any games.
Yeah, it doesn't lock up the game anymore, which is.
I have heard a couple of people say it's happened to them before.
Koma in chat saying he's a firefighter / paramedic. So, really nice of our Canadian Frigid here to take down a serviceman, just to absolutely destroy somebody in game 1 who, game 2, sorry, who saves lives. Way to go, Frigid. Hope you feel good about yourself. So here we see the double block, both worker bots getting in the way of that Buccaneer. No reason for Frigid to hold on to them or to do the single block. You get as much stuff out of the way. Game continues. Looks like they managed to fix it. Which is fantastic that the game will continue. That Crackling Vortex on screen, I will be reasonably sure disappears at the end of the turn.
Yeah, it's like the beginning of the next turn. It's like hanging there, and then you spacebar it, and it usually goes away there. At least that's what's happened with me, anyway.
Or there it goes. Boop, gone.
Yep.
So, Frigid finally getting back to his turn. A lot of resources open for Koma, but not a ton of cards. So, what do you play here? Do you play the Dreamer? Because if it gets countered, you have to assume he doesn't have a counter. He didn't play the counter on Reese. He had 1 card to draw it, right?
Right. That's right.
But if he plays this Dreamer and it gets countered, all of a sudden, no threats. Yes, he can protect his hand, but Frigid just doesn't have... Well, there it is. It plays the Dreamer unanswered. Now, again, living in this world, you almost saw Frigid got excited, and then he remembered it could just be more Buccaneers in hand.
Could be more Buccaneers.
Could
Yeah.
be more Buccaneers.
If there was no counter, then it seems pretty likely that it's probably Buccaneer still in the hand.
Yeah, there it is. So that Buccaneer's just going to knock the Dreamer back to hand. Frigid will take another point of damage. At this point, there are 6 Ancestral Specters at the very minimum sitting in Koma's deck. Now, the power that comes from this Ancestor's Chosen is just that any one of those becomes a good draw. If you could include infinite Ancestral Specters in your deck, you wouldn't include infinite, but you would probably put 20 in every Sapphire deck you played, because it's just that good. As you slowly build up to that explosive finale, things get better and better and better for you. So when this turn goes back, Koma will have 8, and he's getting close to the point where he's got a 1 in 5 chance of drawing one on any particular turn. And that's really, really good, because it means he basically gets 2 cards. He gets a free flying troop for the turn and an additional card.
Yeah, and a 2/2 flyer for free. Well, not free as in cost, but free as in card is a fantastic deal. Definitely something that you'd be thrilled to get off the top here.
Now we see a little bit of a desperation play. Koma plays Mastery of Time, gains himself another turn, goes to 10 at least.
Well, it gets you another 2 Specters.
Yeah, it gets you the 2 Specters. Absolutely, but it's not the place you want to be pulling the Mastery trigger here. Here's that first Ancestral Specter, which could be a big deal. Will draw a card, will allow Koma to decide on how this battle is going to be played out, I suppose. Now he's holding up those 7 resources and 3 cards. He's passing the turnover. And even though he has the Eldritch Dreamer in hand, Frigid's probably not... I mean, he might try to pull the Mastery trigger here, but it's hard to tell if that's actually the time to do it, because you're looking at a... Oh, it's a Time Ripple. There's a Time Ripple on the Eldritch Dreamer. I was going to say... Mastery, like, Koma must have no answers in hand to be making that Time Ripple play, because you would otherwise just be happy to take 3 and maybe blank out the Mastery. And it looks like when he gets a chance, Frigid is just gonna pop and lock the Mastery of Time combo, become the master of all things shifting and sandwise. Actually, he's gonna try to play it right now. I guess that's fine. I'm not. There is a Verdict in hand, so he draws out the Verdict. 1 card left in Koma's hand. Koma has to get very lucky here. Up to 12. Well, 12 minus 1 Specters in board, so we got 11 in there. Doesn't look like one just hits the play. Like, you would just snap play them down. Well, maybe you'd play them post-combat. Koma swings with everything, gets that 5 points to damage in. Mastery could be pretty brutal here. But it's not Mastery, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, Mastery would be the strongest. Like, at this point, you could just chain Masteries and get...
Yeah, well, he's already down 1 Mastery, though. He is down that 1 Mastery.
Yeah.
And...
3 Masteries would be enough, though.
Yeah. Not anymore, now that Frigid has had a chance to play that Worker Bot. That Worker Bot actually would really fudge her with the math, just blocking the Buccaneer once and holding back the Ancestors Chosen. Well, you'd probably swing. If you had all the Masteries, you'd swing with everything. But, I mean, he only has 2 cards in hand. So Frigid, 7 resources. Could Mastery hold up Verdict Protection? Doesn't do him a whole lot of good aside from drawing a card. I think you just Dreamer here, and
yeah, I like Dreamer here again. I mean, you want to get something else.
I think maybe Grolk and hold up Verdict. That line is at least worth some consideration, because still dangerous is the Mastery of Time play, because every time that the Mastery is played, like that Ancestor's Chosen goes up to 13 cards in deck again. Here comes another Buccaneer. You just see the frustration. Buccaneer is the single most frustrating card in the game to play against. It's so annoying.
Card in the tournament.
He grabs onto the rope on his side of the ship. He swings on over. He kicks you into the water, and then you have to spend a bit of time crawling up your side of the ship. Super frustrating. Koma's still not willing to throw Ancestors Chosen into the Worker Bot field here. And at this point, Frigid is making the block with his worker bot, and we see the first Mastery of Time. This is potentially the swing around. You can see the fear in Frigid's eyes as this happens. A second Mastery of Time is enough here. One more Mastery of Time is game for Koma. He's going to swing in here for 7 damage. Leave Frigid on 3. Frigid has 0 resources open. Will not draw a card here in any way. None of these troops are drawing cards, so it has to be one of those 2 cards in hand. He creates the Worker Bot, which is not a Mastery, and passes time, meaning that Frigid gets 1 more turn at the very least here. But Frigid has to present something onto the board that will save him. It has to be that Menacing Grolk. He can't play the Eldritch Dreamer here. It doesn't save him. And he just has to hold up the counter magic in the verdict here. There's just no 2 ways around it. Now, still not enough, is it?
No,
the combat math isn't enough. You just lethal swing with the alpha. There's no card that changes that math substantially. Yes, Time Ripple would slow down the game in Frigid's favor. Like he could survive this turn. No, Time Ripple's not enough. What am I talking about?
What I was gonna say from Frigid's side could possibly end up chaining Grolks. Like if you chain Grolks multiple times.
Yeah. So that Ancestral Spectre was trying to dig for another mastery here. Of course, the Grolk has the board locked down. Those troops won't ready this turn. But a Spectre... Oh, so there it is. Yesterday, I don't think either of them are running Yesterday Shosny. Yes, Yesterday could be a card, but they know each other's deck lists.
Right.
And
we posted the list. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be the issue. So Koma plays down everything. He only has 1 resource open. I think that's...
Yeah, the Dreamer says it's pretty much got to be you're going to have to draw a Grolk.
You have to draw a Grolk here. So now it's got to be you dig for mastery. You have to mastery.
Yep.
And Fridge's going to have to find a card here. He's just going to have to find some sort of answer. Because he's staring down just an impressive board state. And yes, those Ancestral Chosen created close to 20. It's 16, 17, 18 probably Spectres in the deck, and he's only drawn 2. But those 2 are incredibly important here. 3, actually. Well, no, it's 2 he's drawn. Because they're huge threats. They're just 2/2 flyers, but they are huge threats against the Sapphire deck. Because they, like we've been talking about over and over again, they're trying to deal with things one at a time. And this is not something you deal with one at a time. This is a whole bunch of Ancestral Spectres and Buccaneers. That Buccaneer going to pull the Grolk back to hand and replay the Grolk. Probably a safer play than mastering for another turn. So once again, we see Frigid trying to revert the situation back to his favor. Worth noting, this actually is getting close to... We aren't enforcing time in these top 8 matches, but this would have been a match that was going to time by the looks of it, even though the second game went very quickly.
Yeah, the Buccaneer play on the Grolk makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to find another Grolk there anyway, so bouncing it back and just replaying it makes sense.
Man, Splinter is still not... there's just no real good draw. Did Fridge... What does he have in the reserves that really saves him here? Like, we were talking about it earlier, that his reserves are a little weird. I mean, the Thunderbirds aren't enough here. He's probably got the extra Grolk in. The Volcannons don't help. Like... Frigid's reserves have absolutely no bearing in a Mono Sapphire on Mono Sapphire game. Like, if you just look at it from in a vacuum, Koma at least had reserves that changed this matchup.
Yeah, the Ancestors Chosen really was the big difference maker here in this one. Just having so many cheap flyers that get added to the deck and increasing your threat density and going underneath the counter magic, as we talked about. definitely good for the mirror.
And it looks like Frigid does not find the final answer, and this is going to be he brought in Azathoths for this match. I get that, but that's not. I suppose that's better than nothing.
I just honestly the thing for Azathoth like it's good because it will force your opponent, like if you're on the play or if you're ahead on resources, you're able to play it and then say, okay, you're not going to be able to mastery me, you're not going to be able to grok me. So I think that makes sense. It's just unfortunately not going to be able to get to beat the multiple specters that we saw come into play because of the ancestors chosen feeding so many into the deck there. Just being able to play it early, like we saw there. I mean, in fact, that wasn't even all that early in that game, right? It was it was game 2 where he played it on turn 1, and game 3, the ancestors chosen, it was played kind of like maybe turn 4 or so, and it still ended up doing pretty good work there.